Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is WeatherBrains episode number 846 for the 4th day of April, 2022. It's our Monday night weather party. This is the pre-show, the magical part of the program here where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time we say outrageous things. And this is also where we get all the guests online and get everything worked out. If you're looking for the actual show content, move the slider over about 7 minutes and you'll be there. So let's get the embed code up so we can be on television this evening. And there we go. Get everybody invited. April 4th, this is a wild weather day. I think of all of the things that have happened around April 3rd and April 4th. I mean, goodness gracious. You can almost write a book on these 2 days. Snow, floods, tornadoes, all kind of stuff here. But let me get everybody invited really quick. Saw Aubrey Urbanowitz this weekend. Tried to talk her into coming back to the show, but it didn't work. Everything I had, it did not work. Saw Aubrey in Starkville, Mississippi, on the campus of Mississippi State University, where we had the Southeast Severe Storms Symposium in progress. And that was some great fun. But what's so sad, I typically invite Aubrey with everybody else, and I have to pull her out of my little group here, which is sad. But she looked good and totally understand her decision. We all have life changes, and it's not a bad thing, but it's just a thing that sometimes you have to adjust your schedule and do things to kind of fit your priority schedule in life. Yeah, on this date in 1977, we had a horrible, horrible F5 tornado that Dr. Fujita wanted to rate an F6. He followed it in an airplane that went through the northern part of Birmingham. It killed 22 people. It's known as the Smithfield tornado because of the neighborhood that had most of the fatalities north of downtown Birmingham. In fact, Jen's This Week in Tornado History segment will be on that tonight. So I probably shouldn't tell the whole story. She will. But at the same time, soon after that, we had a Southern Airways jet, a passenger jet, crashed not too far from Atlanta that was on the way from Huntsville, Alabama to Atlanta. And that was horrible, just horrible. About 63 people died. You have some that survived. And I look back on it to this date and think, how in the world could anybody survive this? But apparently they ingested hail in the middle of a severe storm. And they tried to crash land it on a highway, and it was just too narrow, and the plane came apart and burst into flames, and it was just horrible. But that all happened on this date in 77. And also on this date in 74, the super outbreak was winding down. This is before all y'all young people were born here. But we were winding down the super outbreak of tornadoes, April 3rd, 4th, 1974 on this date. And that was a life changer for me. All right. So Bill, Jen is back at Hooters again, or is it Wesley's? Which one this week?
He's back at Wesley's. Yeah.
Yeah. Wesley's Booby Trap.
Since it was closed last week, he decided to go back. So okay. Yeah, he put me in charge again. So I apologize.
He's become high maintenance here.
I'm telling you.
We need to put one of those air tags, what were those tracker things on him, and actually see where he really is on Monday nights.
Exactly.
Neil, how are you? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Spent some time at Mississippi State this week and had a great weather conference. I only could be there for part of it. I had to come back, but it was good. I really enjoyed that. So a lot of, that is my first in-person weather conference since COVID. So there's just something about being in person that you can't match on a Zoom call. I mean, and of course you meet all the students and they want to come up and talk and network. And that's half the, what the deal is. And it was just so great being around people. We all the speakers went out to dinner Friday night at the local barbecue joint, the Little Dewey, and we had a great time. It was marvelous. So,
Look, he showed up. He saw.
He's
he saw
live from Wesley's.
That's right.
Oh yeah. No, he won't disclose his location because it's super secret private. So, as I remember, I've got the invites for the guests that I have to invite here. So let me get that pulled up here. I'm neglecting my duty.
And Bruce too. We're going to have him go after I intro Dan. So I'm going to do
Bruce
Dan's stuff.
Bruce is coming on early too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me go through 87.3 emails, and there it is right there. All right. So let me get these folks invited. Rick Smith, you doing okay? And Rick's not going to talk with us. I don't blame him. Bill Murray, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Loud and clear. You want
Awesome.
I'm gonna get off in just a minute, James, and we're gonna play one of my favorite little games. Can James Spann guess where I am just with the video?
We know exactly where you're at Wesley's Booby Trap Lounge. I mean,
Well, see, now we're going to prove that that's not true. Because Wesley's or Fairhope is not a code word for Wesley's. I can officially tell you that.
I tried.
They actually sent us a T-shirt after I mentioned them on the air, a Wesley's Booby Trap T-shirt. So somebody.
You mean recently, or?
This was when I mentioned them on the air as a tornado reference point.
Yeah, being on WeatherBrains doesn't warrant a T-shirt, I guess.
So, Bill, are you driving?
No, I'm not driving.
Okay.
I'm getting off at the exit right now. I tried to time everything perfectly.
Is he driving down there around that place southwest of Birmingham?
Yeah, but Wesley's Booby Trap. That's no doubt that's where he is. He's circling the parking lot looking to get a parking place.
We're going to have it live on WeatherBrains tonight. That's great.
Yeah.
Just northwest of Birmingham, Troy.
I'm sorry.
Get your
Bill.
cardinal directions straight there.
Help me, Kim. Help me.
Hit me.
Help me. I need help.
All right. So I think everybody's here. Hey, Dan, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Great.
Man, that's some good TV hair.
Hey, James, we're going to want to give him permission to share his screen as well, because he's going to take us through the radar from last week.
Okay. That is done. And welcome to our television viewers. We're about to start the show here. We're like 1 minute late. So who are we missing?
We will have Mike at the bottom of the hour, and Bruce Jones is supposed to join us here momentarily he's supposed to do his thing at the top here.
Okay. So I've invited everybody. So I think we're good. So let's get this thing going here. All right. Channel 1 is recording. Channel 2 is recording. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
WeatherBrains is brought to you by Midland Weather Radio. Every home, school, and business should have a NOAA Weather Radio, the official voice of the National Weather Service. And the AMS Weather Band.
Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band. The AMS Weather Band is a global community of weather enthusiasts dedicated to learning and sharing their love of science. Visit amsweatherband.org to learn more and join the band today.
Hey. WeatherBrains, episode number 846, the weekly show all about weather. Longest running weather podcast in the universe, 16 years strong. And they said that it wouldn't last. Thanks a lot for joining us. Glad that you are here. It's our Monday night weather party for those that are watching or listening live. And look who's back, Troy. See, you were here? Were you were not here last week, right?
No, I don't believe so. I had last minute things going on.
Things life happens. It comes at you fast.
No, but glad to be back. And naturally, with me back, we have severe weather that's situated between Rick Smith and myself tonight, and Kim. I saw a hailstorm, Kim. I thought about you last night. There was a hailstorm southeast of Norman last night, and I just said I can't do that. I'm not going to text Kim. I'm not going to ask her. But nevertheless, it's Monday night, so it's time for severe weather.
I'm looking at
it.
It
is.
Looks like I got a warning up in Jack County or Wise County, Texas.
Montague County just there.
Yeah, Kim, how you doing up there?
We're doing fine, blissfully without significant hail here at the house. So my roof gets to live another day, and every day that it gets to live is a happy day. We've just been having this wonderful day. It's a rare event in Oklahoma, seemingly anymore,
Yeah.
but we've had rain just kind of continuously throughout the whole day. Nice, slow, rumbling thunder, and nothing especially severe. It's this amazing miracle. We have neither the fires nor the large hail of destruction. So I really can't complain. It's lovely.
An amazing miracle is our working show title right there.
So, Night of Destruction.
Rick Smith. Looking at the radar here, I guess you're doing the same thing. And yeah, it just looks like a big kind of rain mass.
This is what I imagine thunderstorms will be like when I retire. All thunderstorms, it's just like, yeah, it's thundering. I don't have to worry about it, But no, it's great rain. I mean, the dogs don't like it, but it's wonderful. We need it. We need every drop of it. So yeah.
Now there's your title. The dogs don't like it. Yeah.
That can apply to lots of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Rick, you've been out of pocket. At a weather conference and a spotter training last couple of weeks. How'd it go?
Let's see. Where have I been? I don't even know. Let's see. Well, I know last week was busy. I had the Oklahoma Emergency Management Conference. It happens once a year. James, you were there back in 2015, I think, and spoke at that. And people still talk about that. But no, that was last week. And then at the end of the week, I traveled to Des Moines for the Central Iowa NWA Conference. So that was one of my favorite conferences. I saw the Southeast Symposium was going on. So two of my favorite smaller conferences going on at the same time.
I mean, Rick, this is not fair. I mean, you're famous over the last week. You've been to these meetings. James, you've been to Starkville. I ran down to Walgreens a couple of days ago. I don't know if that counts, but
Well, that beats sitting around the house, I guess.
It does, and not much, but it does.
So give us the rundown real quick. I know we got a great show, and I want to bog us down here, but Rick, give us the short version of how the conference was in Des Moines.
It was awesome. Probably 75% students, which is amazing. Some weather service people, just a small conference. I don't know how many people were there, 250 maybe. The room full, and just lots of good presentations, lots of really operationally oriented. And I got to do two invited talks, one on mental health, critical incident stress stuff, and one on one of the hailstorms from last year, and just lots of great conversations with students. And it's at the same time so encouraging to know that our future is in good hands. And it makes me so thankful I'm not applying for jobs against any of these kids, because man, there's some sharp ones out there. The highlight of the entire conference, though, because Kim mentioned in the chat, was the mayor of Mayfield, Kentucky was there. And she spoke. We need her or someone like her at every single weather conference. She is a real person and talked about the impacts on her community. I don't think she realized what meteorologists did in detail before all of this. And there were tears all over the room as she just called, meteorologists heroes and said, I never knew what you did before, but, keep doing what you're doing. It was great. It was great for the students to hear. And I wish I'd taken pictures of it. She had pictures of herself on CNN with no preparation. She had no hair and makeup department with her. I mean, she just didn't care. She just was an honest speaker, and I could listen to her talk all day.
Rick, I want to give a shout out, because I'd been to that meeting a lot up in Central Iowa. A big shout out to the Central Iowa NWA chapter. They have done this for so many years, and they always do an amazing job. And I wish I could have been up there last weekend. I wish I could have been in Starkville with James and everyone else. But big congrats to the Central Iowa NWA chapter.
Yeah, we got to move on. But it was the most organized operation I've ever seen as far as preparation to get you there and all your travel arrangements and things like that. And it was just top-notch professional. So hats off to them. I'll go back anytime.
I have been to that conference, and I will agree, it was a great experience. And I hated that both were on the same weekend this year.
Yeah.
But I was at the Southeast Severe Storm Symposium in Starkville, and that was a great conference as well. The students were outstanding. They did a remarkable job. And I agree with Rick. I love this next generation. This science will be in great hands, and great speakers, and it was just great. And I did see Aubrey Urbanowitz. I tried to talk her into coming back to the show, but it didn't work. I mean, every arm twist, every incentive package I could come up with, it just didn't work. So, but no, she's made the right decision. But it was great to see her, and she said to tell everybody hello. Let's see here, Neil, you were absent last week. Good to have you back. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And I just got to thinking, I can't even remember what I was doing last week. It must have not been that interesting.
Come on down, Neil. We're right by the Walgreens.
Yeah, there you go. So Bill Murray, who is our guest booking officer, is joining us mobile this evening. And Bill, you want to explain yourself?
Well, I felt bad about, being gone tonight because I was really looking forward to the show, and I wanted to be on the way to Fairhope by 12:30 today and to get down there in time for the show, but I couldn't get out of the door before 6 o'clock. So James, you have to guess where I am. I don't know if you could. I bet James can even tell me the exit number I'm at. What do you think?
And again, we have most people that are listening here. Bill showed me an Exxon gas station that for about 2 seconds. How am I supposed to get it right showing an Exxon gas station in 2 minutes?
There's even, let's say all right, James, there's a Cracker Barrel, a Quality Inn, a Best Western, a Long Lewis Ford, and an Exxon station. Where would I be?
Lewis Ford.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. I was going to guess Greenville, but
the northern
Greenville.
exit of Prattville. So that's where I am. Exit, whatever that exit number is.
I never knew there was a Long Lewis Ford dealership there. I thought you were down like in Fairhope or Mobile or something. I mean,
I'm trying to get there, but I won't get there till about 10 o'clock tonight. But I did have to relate an experience that relates to our guest tonight. Because last Monday night I was driving to Mena, Arkansas, which is in Polk County in the southwestern part of the state, to meet with some officials there. And this gentleman named John Vaca, who had a bed and breakfast, had invited Elle and I to stay at his place. And so, I was really impressed that, Tuesday night he said, checking us in, there's going to be bad weather in the morning. And, we ask our guests to come down when the tornado sirens sound. So if you hear the siren sound, please come down. We'll be ready to go with coffee, and we'll go right into our storm shelter. So, of course, I knew we were probably going to get to take him up on that. And at about 6:45, I looked and saw the line. There were some spin ups in it. And, I told Elle, well, you better get ready because, they're going to issue a tornado warning for Polk County here pretty shortly. And sure enough, they did. But I went down and told them this tornado is not going to bother us. I could tell where it was heading. But the second one was going to come right for us. And so we, waited for it to come, stood outside watching the mesocyclone, and then, boom, it came right overhead, right, as it closed in on us. We all went in this tornado shelter and waited, for it to pass. And it was kind of a miracle because, 3 or 4 miles up the road, it produced some damage. I don't know that it was tornado damage, but, that was an interesting experience to see, a business owner who we talk about this all the time, how important it is that they know, about the weather and that they have a plan. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Vaca and his wife, Joanne, their outstanding little B&B, the Jansen Park place breakfast, bed and breakfast in Mena, Arkansas, because they were doing a fabulous job. And I made some converts to radar scope during that in that storm shelter. But the town of Mena was hit by a really strong tornado. I don't know what the rating was in 2009. And they have a history of tornadoes there. But I had to tell that story, James, before I get back on the road. I'm really excited about the guests tonight. I thought what they did with their Facebook Live after the tornado at Springdale was just spectacular. And I thought it would be real fun to share that. So I'm sorry to pass it off on all of y'all to get to do tonight, but I think you're going to have a real good time. And I loved getting to meet Dan yesterday and talk to him and get him on the show at short notice, because we had to move Chance Hayes, who's going to be with us tonight, 2 weeks back, and he'll be with us on the 18th. So James, I'll go and eat my Burger King and hit the road unless anybody has anything for me, and I'll see you next week.
Well, okay. Notice Bill's going to hang up on us with me. He's actually at Wesley's booby trap. That's a fake.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So
James, I went out there last week on the way to Memphis. I thought get some barbecue. You always looking for good barbecue. And
wings.
They didn't open until 4 o'clock. Wouldn't they open for lunch if they were a good barbecue joint, James?
Don't ask me. I've never set foot in that place. I don't know.
Now,
but before our.
I heard tell on the show that you said it was a strip club. I had no idea. I thought it was a barbecue joint, much as you talked about it on the air.
Before our guests hang up on us, Jen, please bail us out of this abyss that we have gotten into here.
I will. While Bill is traveling down the highway going to Fairhope, he's thrown it to me to do the intros tonight. And so, as he alluded to, we had severe weather last week across parts of Arkansas during the wee hours of the morning, March 30th. A QLCS tornado developed and rolled through Springdale just after 4 a.m. And we have on the show tonight KNWA Chief Meteorologist Dan Scoff, who, along with meteorologist Mike Susko, worked to alert folks about the severe weather threat. And then after the fact, put together a really great Facebook Live reviewing what happened during the event. We want to thank WeatherBrains fan Steve Holmes for letting us know about that review on Facebook. They used GR2 Analyst Archived radar video images to show the viewers how everything unfolded. And we wanted to have both of them on tonight. And Dan is with us right now. He's holds his meteorology degree from the University of Oklahoma, member of the NWA and AMS, and has been with KNWA since 2006, right? June 2006. Dan
yeah,
Scott,
that's right. Yeah.
Welcome to WeatherBrains.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be on here. I'm a big listener. I listen to the show quite often, watch it too on YouTube, see the fun anecdote. Well, that's fun. Yeah, the cat walking across.
It's every Monday night.
Cat.
He's your biggest fan, Dan.
Yeah. I'm not at the house. Otherwise, my dog or cat would be probably joining the conversation too as well. That's awesome. But
yep.
It's a funny story. When Bill was talking about MENA, we just got an engineer here, brand new, started today. And I was talking to him about where he's from. And he said he was MENA, Arkansas. And I was like, oh, MENA. And then that brought me back to the story of Bill last night when he was talking about on Wednesday morning taking cover. And he's like, oh yeah, I love weather. And I'm like, oh yeah, an engineer that loves weather, that's good. And a new engineer as well. But he was watching the wall cloud and all that stuff from MENA. So I thought that was interesting for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Small world.
Absolutely. Well, we are excited to have you really take us through the event. And we're pretty much going to have you just take over here in just a little bit. And I'll kind of lead some of the questioning, but all of us are going to hop in and have you we're going to stop you along the way so you can explain some things to our listeners, because you guys did a great job with that Facebook Live. And so we want to get to that. And Mike will be with us at the bottom of the hour. But before we do that, James, I'm going to have you bring in Bruce, because he had to join us a little earlier tonight. So I thought you could introduce him, and then we will throw it to Dan for his presentation of the Springdale tornado.
Yeah, Bruce. So let's see. Are you out of town tonight? Tell us about where you are this evening.
This is an odd occurrence. I'm in Seattle, and it's actually sunny. There's how often do you see that?
Whoa, that's a shock. Rarely. Wow.
So I checked into the hotel this morning, and the guy down there, a construction guy, was talking about the hail that was falling out here this morning. They had quite a windstorm come off the Pacific, and things have calmed down now and cleared out a little bit. And we're supposed to have some good weather, but I'm here for emergency management conference called Partners in Emergency Preparedness here in Linwood, one of the Seattle suburbs, and have an impressive lineup of speakers coming for this conference up here. So I'm very excited to be part of it.
Awesome. I was just looking, Bruce, that we have tornado warnings being issued now as we speak for parts of North Texas. Looks like a pretty decent hook velocity couplet up there, not too far from US 82 near the Red River. So 'tis the season, Bruce. Everybody needs a weather radio.
Yeah, they do, James. And this will be a nocturnal event tonight as this big squall line gets fired up and starts moving across the Lone Star State and into Louisiana. So it's a reminder that you need to have multiple and redundant methods of receiving these life-saving warnings. It's great to have all the apps on your cell phones, the WEA alerts, but if that cell phone tower nearest you were to go down, where would you get a warning from? And will the warning that comes on your phone be loud enough to alert you in the middle of the night the danger is on the way? NOAA Weather Radio is the official voice of the National Weather Service. Their 1,033 transmitters reach about 95% of the U.S. population with a radio signal that is truly a life-saving service. These devices are easy to operate. You just plug them in. They act a lot like a smoke detector for storms. They silently monitor a broadcast from the National Weather Service, and as soon as the National Weather Service issues that tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, that radio will alert you and give you those valuable minutes to get to shelter. Remember, the Cookeville, Tennessee tornado was a nocturnal tornado, and 2 major cell phone towers were inoperable that night. So folks who went to bed in Cookeville expecting their cell phones to alert them, unfortunately didn't get anything. But the National Weather Service had that tornado warning out 10 minutes in advance. So if you're a listener to WeatherBrains, if you watch it on video, we have a special offer for you. As a listener of WeatherBrains, as a fan of the show, I know that you want to spread the word about weather safety and weather preparedness and help us build a weather-ready nation. So please get out there and spread the word about the NOAA Weather Radio Network. It's a great network. It's very effective. It works very, very well. It saves lives every year and has been saving lives for a half a century now. It is our official federal warning system. And if you're a fan of the show, if you go to midlandusa.com and use the promo code SPAN25, that's SPANN 25, SPANN 25, SPAN25 is the promo code that gets you 25% off on a weather radio. So because we're getting into the season now, because we have Mother's Day coming up, we have Father's Day coming up, there's always a birthday, an anniversary, a baby shower. There's plenty of reasons for you to get and gift a NOAA weather radio. But the most important reason is to gift one for you and your own family so that you're protected from nature's extremes by the official voice of the National Weather Service, NOAA Weather Radio.
And I think one of the features I like that you don't have, Bruce, it's a do not disturb feature, because this is meant to disturb you when the weather is violent.
Yeah, that's a very good point. When they came up with the public alert certifications for these weather radios, they certified that alert tone has to be at least 77 decibels. And I was told that they tested that with sleeping individuals and found that that's what you needed to wake someone who was in a really deep REM sleep cycle. So it was specifically designed to wake people in the middle of the night so they have time to get to shelter. And because the National Weather Service is averaging, anywhere from 9 to 13, sometimes 20, 25 minutes lead time on these tornado warnings, please make sure that you get that warning as soon as it's issued, because those are the seconds and the minutes that save lives.
I mean, so many people have this sleep feature on their phones where it shuts it down while you're sleeping. And it's meant to do that. It doesn't want to disturb you with tones or notifications. And you're going to miss, a lot of the weather notifications on your phone. And so with weather radio, that is not a problem. And I will testify that they are very loud and they work very well. And to this day, I am stunned at how many people do not have one in tornado prone areas because they think they're going to hear some stinking World War I air raid siren in their home during a raging storm when they're sound asleep. That makes zero sense. That has killed countless people, and all you need is a weather radio. We got get the deal. Span 25 for the 25% discount. All right, Bruce. Well, thanks a lot for joining us, and stay as long as you can. We know you got a busy night there in Seattle. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks so much, James. Great to talk to you. Bye-bye.
All right, Jen, go.
All right, Dan, it's all you. We're going to bring you on. We've given you the availability to share your screen. And
Okay.
so we want you to kind of do what you did for the Facebook Live and just kind of take it for our audience. And we are your biggest Facebook fans here on WeatherBrains. So we will be the ones asking you questions.
Yeah,
And just kind of
absolutely.
stopping you along the way. But before you get through that, let's talk about what was the setup for the event and
Okay,
some of
yeah.
your messaging, even a couple of days and even the night before. I know that you did a 2-hour Facebook Live around midnight that night, trying to give people a heads up. Hey, we've got stuff coming in when you're going to be sleeping. So bring us up to the event, and then you jump right in and you do your thing.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And good to see Bruce on here too. We had a programming event that we did in Northwest Arkansas a few years back, and he came out here and came to several different cities. And so definitely weather radio is awesome. But let me set the stage on for March 30th, 2022. So first of all, what was odd about this is we did the day before, we had a media workshop with the National Weather Service out of Tulsa. And, we've done that with Little Rock, which is the integrated warning team. We've done it with Springfield, where they kind of have media. And for Tulsa, they wanted to get together. They did this on Tuesday afternoon, and we discussed QLCS tornadoes. And in fact, in this area, since, like you said, I've been here since 2006, about 60% of our tornadoes last year in the Tulsa CWA were QLCS tornadoes. And there are several instances of storms that have come through where, unfortunately, the warning was a little late or there wasn't any warning at all. And so I know that James Spann and a lot of other meteorologists, including myself, really hate the adage, "It struck without warning." That doesn't bode well, considering you've got alert days on the 7-day, you've got all this stuff ahead of time. But that storm did hit, unfortunately, without a tornado warning. And we'll go through that and I'll show you that. But the night before, it was a race where the moisture, the instability, it wasn't in place yet. But we had 40, 50 knot low level jet winds that were expected to bring that instability into the area. And, there was a concern. All the models were showing this, but you look at the meso-analysis, there wasn't anything there. And so we have this thing in Northwest Arkansas where storms tend to weaken. They tend to fizzle. And in fact, I even coined it the Fayetteville Fizzle, and even wrote a country song about it. It's an original song, but you don't want to see that. That's you'll never be able to unsee that. But
no, we're fine with that.
No, I would love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you YouTube the Fayetteville Fizzle, James is getting on there. But
Get it, James.
I'm all in.
All right. So the Fayetteville Fizzle, because storms tend to weaken as they move into Northwest Arkansas. But this night, it just kind of was different. You could sense and people could sense it too outside. It was storming. And then I was like, so here's the deal. These storms are going to come through in the early morning hours and you'll be asleep, because originally we were talking about 2 days before, we had the timing about morning commute time, 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning. And instead this was 4 o'clock in the morning. So we did speed it up. We caught that in the models, but we're just like, this is going to happen while you're sleeping. And we know QLCS tornadoes are notorious for being difficult to detect on radar, for not being able to see the tornado until it's too late. And so that kind of sets the stage here. And that's why I did that 2-hour Facebook Live, kind of just saying, here's all the stuff that we're looking at. And I'm worried about this day. And hopefully it fizzles out. Hopefully it weakens. But unfortunately, it didn't. Now, thankfully, nobody died. That was the biggest blessing out of all of this. But what we'll do here is I'm going to take you through the damage path. I'm going to show you how quickly it formed. I've got a video of the tornado forming from Malco Razorback Cinema that the general manager gave us and able to show. And didn't see that on Facebook Live because I didn't have that yet. But this will show you just how quick things kind of go downhill. So I'm going to share screen 2. Let me know if you guys see this. Are we all good?
We're good. And,
We're
and
good.
don't forget,
Okay.
a lot of people listen to, so be very descriptive as you describe everything.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to start off with the touchdown, which was located just to the west of the Malco Razorback Cinema. So on the screen, you're going to see kind of these triangles on here. This is EF0 damage in the blue. EF1 damage is in the green. So starting it off, this storm, as it came in, developed rapidly. Tornado touchdown. It was moving about 45, close to 50 miles an hour. And let me just share the video, first of all. So this is the very beginning stages of the tornado. And let me go ahead and show you a video here from Malco Razorback Cinema. So this is looking off to the northwest, and you can see Tzatziki's that's off in the distance, unless you're listening to this. But that just gives you a reason to watch it on YouTube and to watch the stream, because here we go. We're going to start off with this. So initially, everything's kind of pretty quiet. And what's really odd about this is you see those apartment complexes off in the distance on the left side. I had about 4 or 5 coworkers that lived there that told us firsthand how scary of a morning this was. So we're starting off with a little bit of rain, and you're about to see this go downhill really quick. I mean, everybody's kind of seen tornado video before and how quickly it hits, but we're starting to see a little bit of horizontal rain curtains. You're starting to see those very low to the ground. That flash right there was a power flash, meaning transformers are exploding. You're going to notice a sudden wind shift and direction swirling, and here comes the tornado. You can see the darkening moving from left to right on the screen and goes through the Tzatziki's, and that's it. So I'll rewind it again, and I'm sure, could you guys see that? Is it okay on the stream?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there it is going through. And then there's the inflow jet into the tornado, the horizontal rain curtains near the ground. And I don't know if you saw that tree at all. So this Tzatziki's had a picnic table that was on the east side of the restaurant that was tossed across the street and smashed into a guitar center at the top of it. So even though it was just developing, this tornado rapidly intensified. Now we got another video looking off to the north, and you'll be able to see this one. So this is a view to the north. Tzatziki's is on the left-hand side. This is called Joyce Boulevard, for those that are familiar with the Fayetteville area. Hopefully we have several people watching and listening to WeatherBrains, which I just love your show, and I'm just such a big fan. So I'm so honored to be on here. But here's a look at the tornado crossing. Again, you're going to see the lights kind of dim, and then you're going to see off in the distance these power poles that get knocked down. So here it comes. Winds start picking up. You're going to see also the inflow wrapping around the building, because this is looking off to the north-northeast. So here comes, I'll move the cursor off the screen. You're going to see this inflow rapidly right into the tornado, and then here it comes across the screen. See that darkening right there, goes across Joyce. You'll see the power poles get knocked down. There's one, and there's the second one. I mean, pretty wild. And keep in mind, this is happening at about 4:05 in the morning. So I could show you real quick. I'm going to show you some photos here. So here's the Malco Razorback Cinema that was hit. And that, by the way, this is looking off to the east. So that wind got behind the glass block and blew it out. And that really wasn't even in the path of the tornado, which is something to remember. And then here's that guitar center. And up, I don't know if you can see that, but right there, that's the picnic table damage right there that was slammed into that. And that went quite a ways. And then there's those power poles. And so some other quick there's an exit sign from a building that was tossed into it. And so before I was looking at the track, I actually went out there with my son, and this was on the morning show. By the way, Rick Catsby too, he was another intricate part of this television coverage. And he was our morning meteorologist, and he's watching Kansas right now because he's a big Kansas Jayhawks fan. So he's rooting for Kansas all the way. But here's a look at the storm. All right, so first of all, QLCS tornadoes. They are so difficult to determine, but there are signs that some of them are going to produce tornadoes. And so just to kind of tell you what the time is right here, this is at 3:30 in the morning. Now this tornado hit shortly after 4 o'clock. And you're going to notice what's called a cell split. And notice the radar is picking up on what we call a TVS, tornado vortex signature. This, by the way, is GR2 analyst. A lot of people have this program. We personally, we use this for our severe weather coverage. I'm not a huge fan of the velocity and just some of the weather graphics with our Max system and Max Storm. I mean, it's okay. It's great for storm tracks. I just like this radar better, and I think it's easier to use. So we do use GR2 Analyst for on air, and we kind of crop out the screen just to let you know. But you're going to notice right here what's called a line break. And so right about this time, you can see these two cells all of a sudden start to develop. So I'll go back in time, and right at approximately 4 o'clock in the morning, that's 3:55 right there for the product, and then a clear line break. So something I'll share with QLCS is when that line break occurs, that tells you that there is what's called the rear inflow jet, the RIJ, that is punching down and into that storm that might give it that extra oomph, if you will, that extra spin. And this cell to the north is the one that produces the tornado. Now, this dot right here on the screen, the red dot, might be kind of small. And that is the start of the tornado right there, approximately right at this time. So what's weird is the radar is showing approximately 401, but the surveillance shows 405. And so I don't know if everything was right on the money there, and it might be right on that southern tip. But now here's what we've got to do. We got to look at velocity, right? Of course, this is just, it doesn't look all that impressive on the reflectivity. So let's do a split screen. Let's do velocity and let's do reflectivity. And so one of the reasons that I like to use GR2 Analyst is I can set my storm motion. And setting the storm motion makes a huge difference in what that velocity image looks like. And I was actually talking with Bill about this, and I'm a huge fan of radar scope as well, but I don't know why they don't have a storm relative velocity on there. They have a base velocity product that's super high res is velocity, and they have the legacy storm relative velocity. But unless I'm mistaken, I don't think they do have a storm relative velocity in high res. Can anybody confirm that?
I don't know. Honestly.
Yeah, I have the cheapest version available. So
I have the tier 1 and tier 2. So I haven't seen it. And if there is a way to get it, that'd be awesome. But anyways, let me put the storm motion on here because I know what it was. And that's what I like about this. So it was 217. It was moving in a northeasterly direction, and we'll put it at 40 knots. Now, I want to do this because I want you to see the difference in the velocity image when it's changed. I mean, just a tremendous difference right there as soon as it popped up. So for those that are listening, we kind of had what showed like damaging straight line winds, but now you can see definite, no doubt, a rotational couplet right here. And of course, GR also has this ability where you can do what's called normalized rotation with the velocity. So we'll put that on, and we can look at what's called normalized rotation. And so now we're getting, signs that there's a tornado, but it's all along the line. And this is the problems with QLCSs. Now you'll notice here, and I want to open a discussion on this before we move along. You'll see this severe thunderstorm warning. So there is a severe thunderstorm warning that was warned on before the tornado touched down. And this severe thunderstorm warning does have the tornado possible tag. But a lot of people, including my viewers, they're not concerned about severe thunderstorms as much as tornado warnings. And so here's my thought. What do you guys think about the severe thunderstorm with the tornado possible tag? Should it be a tornado warning? Or, I mean, I know there's a lot of storms that don't get reported on. Is it kind of like a difficult thing with I just don't know about this. I kind of have mixed feelings about the severe thunderstorm with the tornado possible tag.
Just one comment from me, Dan. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback this thing. You know what happened. You can go back and look at it now, but in real time, it's a whack-a-mole game. It's really hard, and maybe I'm just speaking for me, but I'm not that good. I don't have the skill set to be able to pull the trigger for every tornado warning. On a QLCS and a break like this, it's hard. So I think Rick Smith wanted to share something. Rick, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Dan, thanks for being on. I watched the Facebook Live this afternoon. Very, very interesting stuff and great insight and analysis. We use the tornado possible tag at the Norman office. I wouldn't say quite a bit, and we don't use it all the time, but we try to make it meaningful when we use it. And our intent, if we put tornado possible in a severe thunderstorm warning, I personally never intend for the public to ever know that we did that or see it. I mean, really, that's a message to you guys in the media and to some extent the emergency managers, just as an indication that either, number one, we think the storm has some potential for a tornado, but it's not quite to the level of a tornado warning yet, or most often we're doing it in these QLCS cases. Oftentimes, as you well know, with these QLCS cases, you may have a line of thunderstorms and you may have 10 circulations up and down the line. Are you going to issue a tornado warning for, a line of tornadoes extended from A to B? You could, but so we try to just be more judicious and issue the tornado warnings for the circulations where we have higher confidence and use the tornado possible for the other ones. But really, it's just a nudger for the TV meteorologist and the EMs to kind of get attention. And anytime we put tornado possible in a warning, the TV meteorologists all see it and most times acknowledge it on the air, just as a sign that, this is the kind of storm where we may not be able to get a tornado warning out in time. So it doesn't sound sirens. It doesn't go on the wireless emergency alert system, but hopefully it gets people leaning forward a little bit. That's how we use it.
Yeah, I understand. And this is a real difficult situation. And James, to reiterate your sentiment, absolutely. Monday morning quarterback, hindsight 2020. I mean, it's a lot easier to look at it after the fact. And I even mentioned that on my Facebook Live. I'm like, it's easy to say this now when we're looking at this and to catch it. But it's things that we want to look at so we can maybe catch it down the road and maybe in another time. But absolutely, we know what happened with the tornado, and it's like, there it is. Now we know, what happens with it. So I totally agree that this is a lot easier to look at after the fact. But one of the things too that I wanted to share is this couplet. It's there, it shows up, but it doesn't. I mean, like Rick said, there's stuff all up and down the line. And by the way, at this time, the tornado is firmly on the ground, and it actually is already starting to increase to EF2 status. It dramatically increased in intensity. The problem is that our radar, and with our radar, we're about average 4,000 to 7,000 feet above the ground over Northwest Arkansas, over Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers. That includes Tulsa's radar, Springfield's radar, which is a lot farther away, and Fort Smith's radar. So we are in a situation where we have a problem that, these QLCS tornadoes, they happen quite often, and it's really difficult to determine them. One of the things I learned with my training and I wanted to share, and I'm sure you guys know, but if you're looking at QLCSs, if you're above 6,000 feet, then you probably won't see that mesovortex quite as much. At least that's what I've been told. And I'll show you where I've got this training from. So I brought up the radar in Tulsa too. And so we're going to look at the radar in Tulsa. And again, that red dot right there. And I'm going to put that storm motion on there, 217 at 40. And I want to show you that the radar beam isn't parallel to the line, which, there was also some difficulties there as well with the correlation coefficient that you'll see. So let me put this split screen on here and we'll look at this. And there is a very strong couplet right here that's located just south of the Springdale Municipal Airport. And so at this time, this tornado is producing EF3 damage And I'll show you some of the pictures of the damage, but it's interesting that the couplet shows up a lot better, although this is over 6,000 feet. So this is about 6,700 feet up in the air from the Tulsa radar, and you can see the way the radials are different. And then we've got this storm as it moves northeast. You see how the couplet kind of weakens a little bit. So here we are at about 410, and the tornado is about 2 minutes left from lifting. So it was on the ground from 4:04 to 4:12, according to the storm report. And you'll notice that unfortunately there just was no tornado warning. And this was a very, very difficult storm. It's early in the morning, but you talk about that messaging and you talk about weather radios and the WEA alerts, and a lot of people mentioned, and they were right, they did not get a warning on this until it was already through, because right at this point, the tornado warning is issued at 4:11.
Hey, Dan,
Now,
I want
yes.
to stop you just real quick. A couple of things. I want to bring in your cohort, Mike. He's joined us on the Zoom. So I want to bring him in, and then I would like to have Kim pop on to talk a little bit about what we were talking about with the tornado tag on the severe thunderstorm warnings, and get her perspective from the social science aspect of that and the importance of that. But before we do, I wanted to make sure that I introduced Mike, because he received his degree in meteorology from the best weather school ever. And I just want to make sure that he saw.
We are. Absolutely.
Penn State. So he received his bachelor's in meteorology from Penn State University. Also has a minor in Earth Systems and Energy Business and Finance. And you're working on your master's at Millersville as well. Good for you. Welcome to WeatherBrains, and thanks for joining us as we continue on and get both of Dan's continued discussion and your perspective on everything as well. And Kim, hop in here real quick, because I really wanted to hear from you. I will just tell you I'm a radio meteorologist. From my perspective, sometimes radio stations will actually not do coverage on regular severe thunderstorm warnings, but they will if they have a tornado tag. So that will actually trigger me to go live. And so it does have meaning for me specifically. And so I know people do notice that tag, but Kim, give us your perspective on that.
Yeah, what you just said is a perfect segue, because the Weather Service, when we started this whole process, it was part of the impact-based warning program when they sort of changed how severe and tornado warnings were conveying different degrees of urgency and possible severity. This was wedged in there too. It's another related issue that they were trying to handle with the same system. And they did an evaluation to try to understand who is receiving these messages and what do people do based on them. There'd been some social science research that suggested, well, if people do get these messages, maybe it would increase the urgency, but there were really sincere questions about how are these things actually getting disseminated if they are? And the answer was they're really not reaching the public directly, but they are going to broadcasters and emergency managers who are seeing them and making decisions exactly like what you just said, Jen. You are changing the nature of your practice. And we've talked a lot about this on this show, that the things you guys do implicitly, and the way you're concerned about different kinds of storms, the way that James wears his heart on his sleeve when he shows his suspenders, like it's a very human endeavor what you guys are doing, and people are understanding and contextualizing the risk with all of that. Making the decision to actually cover a severe thunderstorm warning at all is an important decision. And a lot of these kinds of products, what's great about them is they can inform when the whole, situation isn't very clear. We don't know exactly what we're looking at. There's a lot of uncertainty. Where there's actually a lot of uncertainty is where we need to do a whole lot more work to communicate well. And so the last thing that I'll just say to this is, the warning system as we have it is just a really blunt set of communication tools that we're trying to use to handle a very wide set of circumstances. And this is one of the reasons why I think it's really neat that some of the technologies that are being developed, for example, with the Facets program, they're aiming to try to give more of that explicit uncertainty estimation. And that can help take care of a lot of this, because then you'll know, there's gradations of how certain the forecasters are that different storms could produce tornadoes, and it empowers you as communicators to make decisions about what do I want to cover, what's the priority, and you can tell people there's sort of these shades of gray. So even before a warning gets issued, maybe you can see something, that could have been getting tracked, and there could have at least been some indication, hey, this might become something, because that's the reality of it. That as a forecaster watching that, and we're forcing ourselves right now to wait for a very discrete moment in time to call something a threat. And the reality is it's continuous and continuously evolving. So I think, you've raised a really excellent question, Dan. And, it's not a criticism of the Weather Service that they find themselves in these almost impossible decisions, that there's no perfect in most of these decisions. And what it's about is how you all handle it as a team. And I love hearing what you've talked about, the way you're trying to emphasize things. Jen, you're talking about going on the air at different times because you see that tag. I think that's, exactly how we can do it at this point, and then wait for technology to help us with the rest.
Yeah, that's great. Now there was a tornado watch that came out, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk
absolutely.
about that. And did you guys break in live during the early morning?
Yes, we did. We did break in, but unfortunately, the tornado was almost over, if not already over. So we did break in. Now, I will say this too. I kind of ran into a little bit of a predicament, because I was doing that Facebook Live till 2 in the morning, and then it's like, do I stay up and wait for this storm, or do I pass it off to Rick? And I saw him as he was coming in, and I was like, we got to watch these storms coming in. But it was a tough situation, because I did leave and I watched it from home, and there's pros and cons to that, because the pro is that after the tornado hit, my son and I actually grabbed my son out of bed, and I was like, I saw the CC, that the correlation coefficient drop, and the TDS, and I was like, there was a tornado and it touched down. And I wanted to get out there and check out the damage and help out our morning show, because I know that, there might've been limited reporting at that time. And so it was a blessing that I was out there and I was kind of involved in all of it. I mean, obviously staying out of emergency responders' way and stuff like that, and working with them and avoiding. But it was almost so new, the damage, that I was caught where people were driving in and they couldn't drive anymore because power lines were down, and there was debris on the road, and there were trucks that were caught in between the power lines that came down. And that's about where we were. So Rick and Mike, Mike is on here, and Mike covered it, from the TV standpoint. But, unfortunately for TV, we don't break in for severe thunderstorm warnings. We do Facebook Live, and we have this way where with Facebook Live, we can go on the air, stream seamlessly without stopping the Facebook Live, because we notice when we do that, we lose viewers, and then they have to relaunch everything. And it wasn't a good way to do it. So we have the ability where we can take our Facebook Live through OBS, and we can just immediately bring in what's actually happening in what we call production control room, and we can bring that live on the air. And so, we would Facebook Live, but, as far as on camera TV coverage for a severe thunderstorm warning, we have rules where we can't break on. So it's kind of a sticky situation, and I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer, and I'm not criticizing the tornado possible tag at all. This is just a really bad situation. Unfortunately, this tornado did come through where people are, their homes are hit and the roofs ripped off, and then 10 minutes later, they get an alert on their phone from the WEA, from Wireless Emergency Alert. So it wasn't a good situation. But I do want to show you real quick the TDS, and then Mike, I'm going to have you jump on here too.
Hey, Dan,
yeah.
And Troy here. Let me ask you something as you're getting
Yes,
this up.
sir.
You and Mike and Kim for a second, because I think it's the very top. You pointed out that, we're lucky no one was, that you had no fatalities in all this. Friday, my background in television, James, we're older than the hills, James. But when is the time you don't want the tornado warning? Friday night after midnight. From that standpoint, no one's paying attention. You're going into the weekend. Kim, from the public standpoint, I mean, could there be a worse time than 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, for something like this, Mike and Dan?
Yeah, not really.
Was it a
except that there's
Wednesday?
really good programming, maybe like a world premiere or something like that on
I
TV.
got you.
That's always when the worst severe weather happens, is when you have a season finale or a sporting
Yeah.
event in the finals. But I mean, on a serious note, yeah, that's the worst time, 4 a.m. And Mike, you can reiterate if you're on here, just the timing of this storm.
Yeah, unfortunately, just hit at a bad time. Everyone's obviously asleep, and then with the tornado watch being issued right around midnight, some people were saying how they didn't even know that there was a possibility. So then that kind of opens up discussion maybe of, being weather aware, even though there's not a watch issue, just knowing, okay, there's storm chances tonight. They may or may not issue a watch later on, because that was another thing I noticed. Through our system, we can monitor social media comments in real time too. And a lot of people were saying they didn't even know that there was a threat for tornadoes, even though there was a tornado watch that was issued. I think it was 11:55. I think it was when I got the text alert about it. So it would happen at night. People are asleep, and then the tornado warning came at 4 a.m. So just unfortunately, the timing was the worst possible one with this.
Well, Mike and Dan, I mean, something had to go right here. Otherwise, we would have had fatalities or at least more injuries and that sort of thing. And I think that probably speaks well for the media in Northwest Arkansas and for y'all and what you've done. But it's just the time where I shake my head going, oh, wow.
Yeah. A lot of people too, you know what their warning was? The ground rumbling and the roar that was coming. And unfortunately, that's not good enough for me. And but yeah, that's what happened. And James, have you ever had something happen? Like, I'm sure you've covered a billion storms. What's one that that you're reminded of that just really struck without warning?
Probably we had one in a town called Haleyville, Alabama, which is in the northwestern part of the state. And it's the same thing, QLCS nighttime event. It's very similar, but this was back before we had the technology we have today. The resolution on the radar was not as good. We didn't have dual polarization products, and it's going to happen again. And typically but this thing was an EF3, the pain here.
Yeah.
The pain.
And it developed fast too. And I could show you that damage path, but I want to bring up my radar because I have something that I don't know. And I would love for you guys to answer. There was a lot of signal noise on the correlation coefficient, and this might have prevented them from seeing Tulsa from seeing the TDS, because really, honestly, you see this band right here and it kind of follows the radar. So I'll back up here in time and you'll get to see how that is there. And so here's the time at about 4 o'clock. And so correlation coefficient, when it drops down, it means the radar, for those that don't know, I'm sure a lot of people do, but when the radar is scanning the size and shape and width and height of objects, they're not all the same. If you were to put all these objects in a box, and let's say you put pencils in there and a can and a paint can and papers, they're all different shapes and sizes in a small area. That is a low correlation, which is essentially tornado debris. And so you're going to see the storm, and there's no debris at all on this. The tornado is on the ground at this point, and it's doing damage. But remember, our beam height is about 5,000 feet. And then all of a sudden, when it hit that Nilfisk plant, you're going to see right in this area, there's the debris signature that pops up. But even then, you're looking at that like, that doesn't, that could just be noisy signal. And as James alluded to, this is armchair quarterbacking. It's like, yeah, we know that's the TDS there, but then you can kind of see it start to follow and move in a northerly direction. And at this point, you're like, okay, this looks like debris. And then you kind of correlate it with the couplet. And so you've got, really the tornado lifted at this point, but all the debris was tossed. And this tornado really surprised me. Number one, how fast it developed. Also, how quick it weakened too. It almost 5.2 miles on the ground and 350 yards wide. And at this point, there's the debris, and the debris was carried all the way into Beaver Lake area, which is several miles away. But what is this? What is this? I was wondering what that noise signal is. What do you guys think that is right there? For those experts that are out there, it's on the leading edge of the storm. Is it the gust front? Maybe bugs that are getting kicked up? I just don't know.
This is why we have Dr. Neil Jacobs on the show.
Yeah, I mean, if you sort of back out and look a little bit to the west, you can also see other lines radiating outward.
Yeah.
I would think that because what you're actually looking at is something that's going to produce a stronger signal, probably interference that's closer to the actual the radar itself, and it's just causing these lines that radiate outward. But it's obviously something that's propagating because they move along with the direction of the storm.
Yeah. And it's right in the path of that CC drop, but unfortunately it was just weird. It was just weird looking on radar too. But when you look at it from Tulsa's angle too, whoops, wrong radar. Hold on. Here's Tulsa's angle, and we'll bring up that CC. Now, I studied this for so many times, and you just look at this on reflectivity, and it just looks like some showers, and you have no idea that an EF3 is touching down at this point. And so there's the debris. And so for those that are still wondering about the damage path, let me take you along that real quick. And so we're going to continue northeast. There's a cell tower right in this area that got destroyed and was toppled. And that actually ended up being EF2 damage with that. And I can show you here. Let me look at this real quick. So this is the cell tower. This is the mall. Let me see if we can look at that picture here of the cell tower. By the way, this is a really great thing, and I don't know if this is public, but the damage assessment tool, whenever the Weather Service is putting in all their plots and doing all the stuff with the storm, this pops up on here, and we're able to look at the damage, and then we're able to bring up images. And so there's a cell tower that was toppled, and it's a pretty sizable tower. That was rated high-end EF2 for that damage right there. But
Rick,
yeah,
hey Rick,
incredible.
Rick, you're online? Rick, can you tell me what those cell towers? What are they? Anyone know what those things are kind of gauged to as far as wind speed? I know everyone's a little different.
Yeah, I don't know the engineering aspects of that. I know when we're rating tornadoes, that's one thing we can look at, and I'm trying to scramble as I try to find the exact numbers here, but you can go as high as let's see, collapsed cell phone tower. Yeah, the expected wind with that is 133 miles an hour, which is what they went with in the damage survey there. But it can go as high as 157. So I don't know that the EF scale upper bound, lower bound numbers are based on engineering. So I don't know. I mean, they're probably all different, but just in general, it looks like 130 to 150 mile an hour winds. But yeah.
Thank you.
And I know Ed Calanisi, who is the warning coordination meteorologist for Tulsa, he found out from the engineer how that cell tower was structured. And so at first we thought that's what was going to give it the EF3 rating, but that wasn't. I will show you what did get the EF3 rating. By the way, I can kind of turn this on and off so you can see some of the areas that are hit. And, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't a huge wedge tornado, but it is a wake-up call, I think, for Northwest Arkansas, because there have been so many storms that have fizzled, and there have been some tornadoes that have been very rural and, doesn't really do a lot of damage except tree damage. But this one hit right in the heart of town. And so the Springdale Country Club really took the brunt of this storm. You can see the clubhouse, there's trees down all over the place, and a lot of homes in Fairview Circle really got hit hard, where roofs got ripped off. And Those, by the way, were on the EF2 status. So the tornado hit EF3 as it continued northeast, and then this is it right here. The George Elementary Gymnasium. And thank the Lord that the kids weren't in the gym at the time, because this was a metal, well-built metal structure, metal I-beams bent. And so that's one of the points that gave it EF3 damage. And then it continued northeast. And I'll show you one more where it hit a mobile home park, and it hit this place called Nilfisk. Nilfisk is a large manufacturing plant, and this was quite substantial too. Very, very sobering damage when you see this. And I saw this in the morning as I was out there, and before daylight. And as soon as that light comes up and you're seeing the damage around you, and you're going, oh my gosh, look at that to the south. Because you didn't really know the scope of the damage at the time. And then watch this. It crosses over Springdale Airport, Municipal Airport, and it's just done. And it stops. And it was what was wild, and this was one of the things the Weather Service was looking at, is like after the EF3 status, it basically went down to EF2, EF1, EF0 within a few blocks, and then it just dissipated. Really unusual, wild tornado.
Goodness. Who has questions? There's probably so many questions, but I have a question about, let's talk about sirens, because that's always fun. Were folks complaining at all that we didn't have sirens, or we didn't hear anything, or whatever? And I know Neil has a little story he wants to tell us too, but Dan, did you have any feedback on that? On anybody write back about that, or?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And I always, just like what James says, don't rely on the siren. And, it is antiquated technology. And unfortunately, still people to this day rely on them. But they rely on them when there's a tornado warning. And then the sirens aren't going to go off, since this storm did not have a tornado warning until 4/11. And, I'm not pointing fingers here at all. I mean, I showed you how difficult it was. It was a very difficult storm to gauge. There are signs that you could see, but at the same time, looking back at it, it's a lot easier when you've got the archive instead of real time. But I'm kind of kicking myself. I wish I was in the studio where I could have maybe caught this before it happened. You always want to do that. You always want to try to learn from your mistakes. And, I kind of wish I was there. At the same time, it was important to get that damage information out, to tell people to avoid this area, don't go here, because traffic was just you can see Robinson Avenue with the tornado track. That's a very heavily traveled thoroughway right through Springdale, and the airport, Old Missouri, is heavily trafficked. And this is in the morning hours. People are getting up. They don't know a tornado hit, because it's only 350 yards wide. There were some spots that didn't have power. But yes, the tornado warning sirens, people mention them all the time. And I'm like, if the city has them, it's another source of warning, but don't rely on it. Please, please.
I've got a siren story that'll get you riled up. I think it was Thursday. Wasn't it Thursday, Kim, that I was texting you those screen caps?
I think it was, yes.
So it was that same system that went through you all, came through North Carolina on Thursday. And I was watching it come over the mountains and thinking, okay, well, it's, we're going into the afternoon, things are heating up. And I guess the line of storms was probably maybe an hour west of me. So I was in Durham. It's probably going through Winston-Salem. And the tornado sirens go off. And I grab my phone and I look at it like, how did I miss this? And there's nothing going on my phone. And then this voice comes on after the siren starts talking about, oh, this is a test. And I was like,
my gosh,
why
Oh,
would
brother.
you do a test
Oh, please.
with a line of storms approaching? And then literally, I kid you not, probably 2 hours later, a tornado does hit Wake County. And it was impressive. It actually, there was a pretty weak signature for about 15 or 20 minutes, but for 1 or 2 frames, it had a really, really strong velocity couplet. And there was a tornado warning. The other thing that really irritated me was because of the shape of the county that I live in and the angle that the storms always track, almost perfectly 15 minutes after the cell has passed my house, do the actual sirens go off, which just has to do with the shape of the county. And so I was sitting there looking at my phone and I was like, oh, wow, this is, this is going to get a tornado warning issued any second. And then literally like 2 seconds later, a warning goes up and I watch it. It misses me to the south and the east. And then like 15 minutes later, the sirens go off. So then I pick up my phone again, thinking, is there one behind it? Nope, it's just the usual delay because I still happen to be in the same county. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. But I mean, isn't there some rule that's like if Storm Prediction Center has you under like some kind of like classification, maybe you shouldn't test your system?
Yeah, you would think. I'll tell you this, in Pampa, Texas, my wife's family is from Booker, Texas. So the most awesome storm chasing terrain ever. I love going there. Well, my wife's like, it's ugly. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is beautiful. You can't see trees for miles. Unlike Northwest Arkansas, which is the worst chase terrain. But we're in Pampa. We're in the pool. There's a storm happening. And we kind of hear this distant, kind of sound of the sign. I'm like, what is that? And we go outside and we open up the door and they're sounding the siren. And immediately, I'm like at the hotel, grab my phone, look at it, and it's just a little shower activity. And my son is the funniest thing. He was kind of freaked out of tornadoes at the time. He was like 6 or 7 years old, but his eyes got about this big. He looks over. The next thing I know, I turned around to find him. He was gone. He went up to the second story of the hotel to get my wife and bring her down to safety. I was like, he knew exactly what to do. But they were testing the sirens on a cold, cloudy, rainy day. And it was just like, or it was a warm, humid, rainy day. And that just wasn't a good idea.
Well, let you know, Neil, that we're very proud that we'll be sending you the James Spann Siren Hater Certificate and the entire membership packet. That'll be in the mail to you very shortly. Yeah.
You'll be a member of the club soon. Yeah.
Yes.
I've already got the big graphic that I show every time. Yep. Don't rely on sirens.
Oh my goodness. Rick, you have a couple of things you wanted to talk about in terms of messaging. So let's go that route in terms of how do we talk about QLCS tornadoes?
Yeah, I mean, and Dan, your old chasing buddy, Michael Armstrong, and I were chatting about this the other day, the challenges of messaging these things. Traditionally we have these QLCS tornadoes, or we're thinking about tornadoes embedded in a line. We'll say things like, could have brief weak spin-ups or brief weak tornadoes. And EF3 tornado, it was brief, but they're not weak. EF2, EF1, if it hits your house, none of them are weak. So it's a challenge to how to message these. These are tornadoes, but they're not your traditional tornadoes that you're going to get long lead time for, or any lead time for. So I don't know. I mean, I think we're trying to phase out some of that brief weak spin up wording, because that it's not really accurate in most cases. It doesn't really convey the threat. But I don't know what you replace that with. Do you just say a line of tornadoes could occur? I mean, I don't have an answer. I'm just raising it as a discussion point for the group here.
I mean, Mike, if you're on Mike Sesko, he's in emergency management, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Mike Sesko.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing about that. Few brief spin-ups is more of a, should we be using it versus just saying, hey, a couple embedded areas of rotation could lead to some tornadoes along the line in this situation. But it also turns to how, a lot of people with the general public may not really understand few embedded areas of rotation. Like, okay, so what does that mean? Because thunderstorms can rotate but not drop a tornado. So I don't know if with the few brief spin ups, if that's necessarily the right thing to say, but I do think it kind of, people know, okay, spin ups means tornadoes. Another thing, or just saying, you know, along the line, a couple tornadoes could form along it, and just flat out say it and kind of do it that way, just short to the point, versus all this, I'm going to add, say, fluff to the description of it, you know, few brief spin ups. No, it's a few tornadoes, just flat out, just say it. Might be a better way of doing it. But I do know that there is some discussion, at least within the emergency management and the crisis communication areas, that they're trying to say along what's the exact wording we want to use and what's fluff and what's not fluff with it.
Yeah, I think we're going to stop saying isolated brief spin-ups because, Mike, last time we had a storm on October 21st, 2019, we were saying isolated brief spin-ups, and this thing tracked down the ground 31.4 miles, and it was 1.5 miles wide. That is not an isolated brief spin-up, and that was an EF2. But it happened, lo and behold, in a QLCS event. And so I think we're going to refrain from saying isolated brief spin-ups. But, you know, we also struggle with the fact that we don't want to cry wolf and say that every storm is going to be bad and produce tornadoes, because then I think the messaging will be maybe not taken as seriously when, you know, we say, oh, this storm, you know, like the alert days. It kicks me just to no end when we put an alert day on the 7-day, and Mike, you know this, when it doesn't end up producing, and then you're like, oh man, you're happy it fizzled out and that it weakened, but you're not happy the fact that you made this sound like a really big system and then it just fizzles out. I don't know.
I think I'm more disheartened in the fact that people didn't know about Tornado Watch was out, you know, that there's something going on there too. I mean, I know it was still late at night, you know, that when the Tornado Watch came out, but that already should have people heightened, that if you have a line of storms and there is a tornado watch, the ingredients are there that a tornado could form quickly. And I think somehow being able to describe that, and you tried your best, Dan, you know, at midnight to do that, you know, you're on there for 2 hours and hopefully people are listening. That's disheartening. Hopefully people, but I know that people still struggle with the difference between watches and warnings and stuff. So it's hard.
Yeah, it is. And another thing too is that, you know, like I said, the cry wolf thing. I mean, people know that storms weaken. It's this old adage. In fact, we got some comments on Facebook, and it's like, and you could tell they were not happy. Maybe finally the Fayetteville fizzle thing won't cause people to, you know, not take storms seriously. And maybe that's partly my fault, because there are a lot of storms that do weaken. And I mentioned, you know, not every time do they weaken, but a lot of times they do. And whether it would be terrain in this area, the Ozark Mountains that does it, you know, it's tough to say, but you know, I could be partly at fault for that too, you know, saying Fayetteville fizzle. It is kind of fun, and you know, it's kind of something that you coin, but at the same time, it could hopefully not, I'm not preventing people from taking storms seriously. But I think EF3 in their backyard is going to make a nice little wake-up call for next week when we have our next round of severe weather.
Here's one thing I say when we get into a situation like that, and one thing, when you get old, you get honest, and you really don't care what people think, which is kind of refreshing. Really, when I was young, I worried about what's this guy going to think? What's he going to think? What's she going to? It doesn't matter. And I get on the air on a night like that, and I'll just say, look, there's some things we don't do well in the weather business. We don't, and everybody says, "Ooh, you shouldn't be saying that." Well, it's the truth. There's some things we cannot do, and there's some things we don't understand. And humility is missing. And I've said this before, it's missing in this science. And so I'll get on television or whatever, you know, whatever live stream, and just say, look, This could be a night where a tornado gets down and there will be no warning. Okay. Which means you really got to pay attention. You've got to be listening. You've got to be alert, and you've got to take action on your own if you think there's a tornado nearby based on visual or audio clues, even if there's no warning. I think we have to be honest and kind of explain that in situations where we're not that good. You know, a generational tornado day, any third grader could issue these warnings. It's easy. That's the easiest thing. The hardest thing is what we're talking about here. It's the middle of the night, got a big rain mass, and you've got an embedded tornado or two. And, you know, did you know going in this is going to happen? No, nobody did. And so I just think being honest is part of it. And people really appreciate that. And the other thing, too, we got to keep the FAR down. You know, I mean, there's some offices where the FAR is 80, 85, 80 to 85% tornado warnings or false alarms. And I know there's been some studies that say people really don't matter. You can give them false alarms 85% of the time, and they really don't care. Well, I think they do. And I think that they decide these guys are full of, you know, they're just full of it. You know, they're doing this to glorify themselves, get themselves on television, become these blow-dried boobs on TV where they're doing all this kind of stuff. And we got to keep the FAR down. We've got to do that. And if you start trying to catch all these tornado warnings, you know, all these QLCS warnings, warning, because you want the POD to be 90. We have the best POD in America. Well, if 80% of your warnings are false, what good is a high POD?
Yeah.
So, sorry, that's my soapbox of the evening.
It's a wonderful soapbox. I was just commenting in the chat, and Jen encouraged me to share that you call that humility, you know, being humble about the things we know and don't know. And I say that's effective communication of forecast uncertainty. What you just described is the goal. You're trying to, the thing about it that's so great is it's empowering of the people who are listening to you, because you're not pretending that you know everything and that they just need to rely on you for all of their decisions. You're saying, you know what, you're going to need to pay attention, because this is a situation where, as a forecast enterprise, we know things can slip beneath the cracks in this kind of a situation. And you need to know your situation and whether or not you need to be watching. And that puts the ball in their court. And all of that, from being honest and effectively communicating what you know and don't know, and empowering people to make their own decisions for themselves about risk, all of those things improve trust in you as a communicator. And,
Kim,
that's critical for people making decisions. Trust is so important.
But Kim, one of the biggest things that I at least seen in the past, some of the people that don't want you doing that, the biggest that I've seen in the past are the TV station general managers. In the past before, I've said, hey, this model, I just think, I didn't say it sucked, but that's what I was thinking at the time. We buy this thing, but this sucks tonight, and I don't agree with this model. And I said on the air one night, I was in the general manager's office the next Monday. He said, we pay good money for that model. I said, it still sucks. You know, and I'm just telling people what the deal was. Ended up, I was right in that case. We see that sometimes. I don't know if we see that, James. You and I are both about as old. I don't know if we see that as much as we used to in TV station, because I've been off the air for about 11 or 12 years. But
yeah, but what Kim said is right. You know, we're empowering the people to make their own decisions. You are part of the process. You have to be a decision maker in this night as well. And I think that's a very valid point, where it throws a little bit back on them. And you hate to do that, but people, they want to feel some power in a situation like that. So, and again, I don't think the managers are like that. I agree, Troy. They call you in that front office and ream you out. Stop that, son. Stop it now. You know, we pay good money for this. They're not like that. At least in my experience, they're not like that anymore. And they tend to trust us a little bit. And we're all in the same business. We're trying to protect life here, but just sometimes you got to communicate uncertainty and what we don't know and what we can't do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
You know, the greatest answer I give often now is, I don't know. But when I was 30 years younger, I'd have to think, oh, I've got to have an answer to this. I've got to come up with something, where now I'll just say, if I don't know, I don't know. I'm being honest. And it's very refreshing to be honest, quite frankly, on the air, to talking with people. It really is.
It is. And this is a great discussion. I want to bring this back around. I know Rick had some comments too. gosh, I'm trying to find even where it was. Yeah, Rick wanted to talk a little bit more about rating.
Yeah, I mean, we had a similar event to this back in May of 2019 in El Reno, which people talk about more Oklahoma being a tornado hotspot. El Reno is right up there with them, just west of Oklahoma City. And this was a QLCS event. It was a little bit different. It happened at 10:30 at night. But this happened at the end of a long day of ramp up to severe weather. We had had a risk of severe weather for days. There were watches out since noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So people had just been saturated with weather information. It was Saturday night. And the storms are kind of weakening as they move toward Oklahoma City. So it's like, and I don't think we even extended the watch, or if there was even a watch in effect, it was just a severe thunderstorm watch. We had a QLCS tornado spin up very quickly. We were extraordinarily lucky to get 2 minutes warning. We got 2 minutes before it started. This tornado lasted 4 minutes. So, think about 2 minutes warning for a 4-minute tornado, but had 2 fatalities. Unfortunately, it did go through some mobile homes and right there along I-40 in El Reno, but just some similarities with the event. But I remember at the time going out and doing the damage survey the next morning, coming across damage that I thought I was fairly confident it was EF3 damage, but just thinking, even I was thinking QLCS tornadoes, that's kind of unusual to get an EF3 QLCS tornado. I know they've happened, but it happened in your event, and it happened in ours, and it's happened in other places too. I just wanted to share the similar story that, different time of day, but a nighttime event with little or no warning. I think warning fatigue played into that event a little bit because people had just been battered over the head for hours and hours with severe weather, and here come the storms, they're going to be bad. And then they started dying out as they got close, but they were still extremely locally bad right there in that area, unfortunately. But yeah, this myth of the QLCS tornadoes being brief and weak. 4 minutes is brief, but it's not weak at all. So again, that's just a thing I think we need to move away from. But and another point to my story is these are not, the storms in Alabama and Oklahoma and Arkansas are the same. We don't get all the supercells. You don't get all the QLCS and vice versa. We get our fair share of that here too. So yeah.
Hey, Rick, that you're talking about warning fatigue. There was a tornado that came through Woodward. It was after a big severe weather event, multiple supercells, and then at the very end of this severe weather event, around midnight, Woodward got hit. Yeah. Was that a QLCS or was that a supercell? I can't.
No,
remember.
That was a supercell. That was it was embedded in a line, I think, or there was a line of storms, but it was a legit supercell. But yeah, that was a whole weekend of severe weather, and that Saturday was really, I don't mean hyped up in a bad way, but hyped up as I think there was a high risk. There was PDS tornado watches. It was a whole day, and there was a bunch of tornadoes in the afternoon and evening in Northwest Oklahoma. But yeah, I'd gone home. I had worked the entire day and gone home, and that happened. So yeah, there's a good number of QLCS events that we have here, especially down in Southeast Oklahoma, that happen after dark. But that particular one was not.
Yeah, that was exactly. I saw in the chat, April 14th, 2012. That was the day.
Yeah.
It's funny how people say, how can you remember tornado dates? And I'm here among good company where people could do the same thing. So that's good to see.
I'll always remember that day because the day before, the notorious the day before the day, we talk about that, chasers and things like that. Tomorrow's the big day, but something bad happens this day. We had a Friday the 13th tornado in Norman that day that got very little warning. It was it took almost a worst case path through Norman here, but very little impacts because it was relatively weak. But yeah, so I can't remember birthdays and things like that, but yeah, you remember stuff like that.
So for Mike and Dan, real quick, I wanted to ask 2 more questions for you, but what kind of feedback did you all get from your viewers on your Facebook Live that you did that next morning? Us weather geeks loved it. But what kind of, what about your viewers? What did they think about just you kind of reviewing everything?
They loved it, to be honest with you. Dan, I don't know if you were watching the comments as they were coming in, but I had it up on my phone and people were saying, thank you for going into this. They loved the education aspect of it. I'll admit sometimes, and I'm sure Dan, you'll say the same thing too, it can get very intense sometimes. We call it being sucked into the vortex, so to speak, here at the station, where we get very technical with it. But the viewers really appreciated going in and specifically just talking about why this storm was so difficult to warn on, from even the most experienced meteorologist having somewhat of a difficulty knowing that this was on the ground at the time. And I'm sure Dan went through everything before I jumped on here. But when you looked at the radar at the time, because I was doing that with Rick Casby, our morning meteorologist here, we were looking at the time, and until we saw the TDS, it didn't even click in our minds that there was a tornado here on the ground until we saw the TDS. And then we were like, uh-oh. And then we jumped and got everything on and broke in as soon as we could. But people were very grateful and appreciated it, I would say. Dan, I don't know if you saw anything different, but that's what I saw.
Yeah, definitely. I saw the comments, and I was 100% transparent with them. It's like, as James mentioned, it wasn't real time. It's after the fact. And it's like, yeah, this is easier to show where it happened. But Mike, that we download those archive radar because I want to try to fit next one that comes through. I want to have a good idea. But then what do you do with the messaging? Do you say this is a tornado when there's no tornado warning? And it's, it's a struggle. And we did the Facebook Live, not to point fingers, not to, to blast, the office. And that's definitely not the thing that you want to do. And it was a tough situation. I know a lot of people weren't happy about it, but, you have to be transparent with them that these storms did hit. And so one of the things I did is I went back and I looked at all my broadcasts leading up to this, not just that night, but my broadcasts, like, what did I say? Did I mention QLCS tornadoes? Did I have messaging? And I downloaded the video, and I don't know if audio picks up on here, but if I share a screen, would it show? I don't know. And you could tell me if the messaging happens. Let me try it real quick. If it doesn't work, then we can let it go. But this is just, my messaging here. See if the audio works. No, you can't hear it. Good. Can you hear it? No, that's all right. Not important. Basically, I'm showing the line coming in. This is the model the day before. And notice 6 a.m. it shows on the high resolution Phase Triple R, it shows thunderstorms popping up. But, we mentioned it, and then we had, the QLCS days and stuff like that, where, we talk about this is just the messaging that we have, where we have that alert day. We put it on the 7-day. So there it is, alert day, some severe, mainly in the morning. And we highlight that, and we talk, this is a day you've got to watch, and it's really in the morning. And this is on Monday, that we're talking about this. So I look bad and on a big screen. So sorry to all those viewers that have to deal with that.
So I wanted to ask a logistical question about going live. So you're doing Facebook. Do you also do YouTube live at the same time?
I don't, James. We have a situation where we use StreamYard, and with our StreamYard, we have 3 Facebook accounts. We have our weather page, we have my Facebook page, and we have the station Facebook page. And so I do that, and it's something that I wanted to pursue, but I don't know how to do. So if someone could help me out, that would be awesome, because I know you are the juggernaut of media.
No, I'm not.
Yes,
I am
yes.
not the juggernaut guy, but we started hearing from a lot of people that said, I've deleted my Facebook account for whatever, that because of political rhetoric or just the haters and the trolls, and there's some bad stuff over there. And so they say, why aren't you on YouTube? And we did not stream on YouTube, but we have certainly started to do that. And I'll just say the other problem we've had, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, is that on the corporate stream, you get these ad messages that come on, and you get a pre-roll, and you get an ad message in the middle of a tornado, deal, and you can't have that. So we've started using YouTube, and I think that's been helpful for us, for those people that don't use Facebook. How did your numbers look like on Facebook? You know?
I think we had like 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was up 10,000 views, maybe 1,500 at the time. We had about 300, 400 that were with me till 2 a.m. I mean, these are some big weather geeks, some weather weenies, as you like to say.
Dweebs, yeah.
The weather dweebs, yeah. I'm the biggest one.
Yeah. So we have to pause here, guys. It's been a great discussion, but I hope you guys can stay with us because we have to do picks of the week here in a minute. But we are going to pause and go to Tony Rice for his astronomy report. We have Jen with This Week in Tornado History. And we will come back and do a quick weather roundup. And then we have severe weather in progress tonight for some. And we'll do picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
Tomorrow morning, April 5th, look for Mars and Saturn just half a degree apart low in the eastern horizon, about an hour before sunrise. Each morning this week, you'll see Saturn pull farther and farther away from Mars, until this time next week when it forms a line going down and to the left, with Mars, Venus, and making its return since ducking into the glare of the sun back in January, Jupiter. These 4 planets will continue to spread out over the next 2 weeks until the next photo op, early the week of April 18th, when they line up, each separated by about 10 degrees or about the width of your outstretched fist. Looking ahead to the rest of April, all the planetary sights in the sky will remain in the pre-dawn hours, unfortunately. The first planet that we'll see rise before midnight will be Saturn in late June. Jupiter will join it in the evening sky again by the early fall, and that full complement of outer planets will again be visible in the evening sky by late fall. Elsewhere, in your eyes, have you ever noticed that when you get up in the middle of the night and don't turn on a light, everything looks like it's in black and white? Well, that's your night vision at work. You see, there's 2 types of cells in your eyes that respond to light, rods and cones. Rods are the sensitive ones, so sensitive that you only need a photon or 2 of light for them to do their job. Cones need a lot more light. Each one specializes in either red, blue, or green. Each cell is just a sensor. It's providing information to your brain about 200 nanometers worth of visual spectrum that each is responsible for. In low light, when your brain is only getting information from those rods, it interprets everything as grayscale. As the light levels increase, the cones go to work and color information can be interpreted. This is where the advice comes from to give your eyes time to adjust when you're outside viewing a meteor shower or stargazing in general. Give those cells a chance to relax and your brain a chance to catch up from all that visual information, and you'll see a lot more of those dim sights in the night sky. Your Astronomy Outlook, follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, it was a powerful F5 tornado that moved 14.7 miles through parts of Jefferson County, Alabama on April 4th, 1977. This tornado is named after the area which received the greatest damage, Smithfield Drive and Smithfield Lane. For the storm data summary, the twister developed about 4 miles northwest of downtown Birmingham. It moved to the northeast at 60 miles per hour and lifted east of Tarrant. 167 homes were destroyed and 48 had major damage. Daniel Payne College was badly damaged as well. For Thomas Grzoulis, in significant tornadoes, cars and trucks were, quote, hurled like matchsticks from I-65. Tragically, 22 people were killed and 130 were injured. The National Weather Service in Birmingham has a ground view photo of damage near US 31 and I-65. The caption reads, "This is where the tornado moved onto a ridge and also the area of the newest and best built homes." The picture is looking generally northeast. After destroying almost everything on this street, the tornado emerged off the ridge and down a steep embankment in the vicinity of US 31 and I-65. At the time it left the ridge, 2 dump trucks were airborne in the funnel. Read about this event and hundreds more at tornadotalk.com. Calling all weather enthusiasts. Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band at amsweatherband.org. As an AMS Weatherband member, you'll get to go behind the scenes with the scientists of the American Meteorological Society, whose members have been at the forefront of weather, water, and climate research for over 100 years. You'll learn about the very latest research from the scientists who are actually doing it. What's more, you'll become a part of a passionate online community of weather enthusiasts. Get access to exclusive videos, webinars, and other fun content, and support the science you love. Learn more and join the band today at amsweatherband.org.
So I think something just happened that's never happened on the show before. Just had a WIA go off on my watch and my phone here during the show. And I tried to mute that sound because it is loud, but it's an amber alert here in the state. It's not weather related. So that was an amber alert here. So, and Jen, I appreciate that this week in tornado history, that day was quite a day. That was an F5 just north of downtown Birmingham. And the same afternoon, a Southern Airways jet crashed in Georgia. And Troy, you might remember this one. It was just horrible.
Southern Airways
died.
flight 191, I believe. Yeah. No, that was Delta flight.
Yeah, that was in 1985 was Delta flight 191, but 63 died. The pilots died, but some passengers lived. But apparently, it ingested hail.
Yeah, it ingested DC-9, and again, those were in the days, and I think some of us may be old enough to remember this. This was back in the days when FAA center radars were black and white, and cockpit radars were black and white. And I think Atlanta Center FAA, basically, this is before we had a Weather Service presence in the centers, and they basically steered them into an area of weak reflectivity, but the hail core causes the radar to rebound. So instead of sending that plane into that DC-9 into weak area, it was actually into a hail shaft.
Oh, goodness.
And if you want to read a story, it's from Sandy Pearl. Sandy was a flight attendant on that Southern Airways flight. She survived that. She wrote a book, a very good book that you really ought to read.
I would love to read that because the 63 people on the aircraft, including both pilots, died. 9 people on the ground were killed, but 20 passengers and the lady you talked about survived. 2 flight attendants.
And that plane, that DC-9 became a glider, I think at 17,000 feet. It ingested hail in both engines on the tail, and the windshield was coming in because of hail damage into the cockpit. But it became a glider at 17,000 feet. They say the pilots, even though they passed away, they did an amazing job. If it hadn't been for their piloting, they got that thing to a highway. It was just in a bad place.
Yeah, and it was just a horrible, horrible day. So again, that was on this date back in 1977. We are going to do a double email segment next week because Jen's been talking a lot this week, and we got a lot of email. We'll do all of that next week. But let's see our Oklahoma correspondents. How's our severe storms out in North Texas? Y'all are close to the action. Looks like heavier stuff's north of Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yeah, just south of the Red River and between, on the north side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex there. A bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings. There was a tornado warning earlier just south of the Red River and southwest of one of my most dreaded places to see in the sites of a tornado warning is one of the I think it's the largest casino in the United States, the WinStar Casino there, just down on I-35 south on the Red River. And
Packerville.
We could do a whole episode on that, but not that casino, but casinos in general. But that tornado, that storm dissipated, but lots and lots of rain and thunderstorms down there. And things are quieted down here in Norman. So
it looked like, Rick, that this thing would end up being more of a bowing effect. If you looked at some of the models today, it would bow out more along I-20 or even I-30 in Northeast Texas and head over toward Shreveport. So be watching that.
It's that could happen. It's looking more like that than anything else right now. So,
hey Rick, you're speaking of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, James.
No, go ahead, Dan. Go.
I was just going to say the Kingston tornado that happened a couple weeks ago. That was a rare one too, where that touched down, and I was actually watching Val Castor's stream when he was driving into it. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, there's damage here." So. Was that a QLCS? Because I know that there were other storms that were happening too. It was on the north end of a bookend vortex, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've been talking about that, and I think the radar experts in the office, we're kind of thinking, we're calling that a hybrid, maybe kind of a QLCS supercell hybrid, whatever that is. But it wasn't a pure QLCS, but then again, it wasn't a pure, like a supercell with a mesocyclone type thing. But again, that was a significant tornado. It looks like it crossed the Red River, although rivers stop tornadoes, we know, but in this case, they didn't. They crossed the river, crossed Lake Texoma. Some of the heaviest damage was at a marina there in a community just north of the marina. So yeah, that was another quick one that happened very, very fast.
And
Yeah,
again, all
good.
I was going to say that what's happening out in Texas and Oklahoma that will roll through the southern U.S. tomorrow. And there's an enhanced risk through parts of the deep south. And then we'll have a cold front Wednesday with another risk. And then after that, we turn kind of cold here. We might see a late season freeze or a frost here this weekend. That might be the last one for us. And I was going to say also, since the last show, here in the Birmingham National Weather Service County warning area, they've identified 12 tornadoes. This is based on surveys from last Wednesday, 3 EF2, 7 EF1, and 2 EF0. So we had a really, really rough night last week. So it's been shaken and baking, but it sure looks like the upper pattern, Kim and Rick, are just going to flip a little bit, and the action might be shifting your way here next week in about a week. What do you think?
If we have a vote, we both vote no. I'll let him speak for Kim. But yeah, it does look like that. It looks like things get active potentially next week. So
yeah, I'm excited. See, we get the ridge here, and you guys get the trough, and it's going to be maybe a little pattern flip here going on here. So
okay.
All right, well, we need to do picks. Yeah, we need to do picks of the week, and this is where we go around the horn. Everybody's going to share something that is weather related. So Mike and Dan, hopefully you've had a chance to think about this, or if not, we'll let you go last, and we'll get your pick of the week here. So let's start with Neil Jacobs, who probably has a good one for us this week.
So I was on a plane earlier today, and I was looking down at these giant plumes of pollen. And it got me thinking, does anyone actually model this stuff? So I went on Google Scholar and started looking up papers. And turns out there's actually a lot of publications using the high split model to model plume dispersion for pollen. So my pick of the week is a paper that's basically applications of high split for pollen plume dispersion.
It is outstanding. This time of the year, we all have yellow vehicles out here in the parking lot, and we are all wheezing and whining. So that is fascinating, just fascinating. All right. Thank you, Neil. And again, all these picks will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Let's go to Kim. Kim, what is your pick of the week?
I knew you were going to come to me because right when he mentioned that I needed to sneeze. Oh my gosh.
That's the way it always works. It always works that way.
It does. Very appropriate. Yay, pollen. So my pick of the week is pretty germane to the conversation today. We've had a lot of conversation about topics in weather risk communication, especially for severe weather and tornadoes. And there happens to be a bill that has moved through the Senate, through at least the relevant Senate committee, its pastor committee, on this topic. It's called the Tornado Act, and a lot of stuff in there on social scientific aspects of our enterprise. So thought that people might be interested in checking that out.
Excellent. And again, the pics will be up on weatherbrains.com. Mine is this tornado tails thing from NSSL. Kim, I've not seen this. Is this your project here?
It is, and I actually didn't choose that as my pick yet because I'm not sure it's exactly working yet. If you go to the website and the map is working and there's not a little thing that says the widget's broken, then great. But yes, that is actually my team's project, and the goal of it. I've talked with you guys in the past about how I've worked with the Weather Service and Natural Hazard Center and some different social science researchers to try to create a standardized data collection instrument to hear from people after tornadoes. What did you actually do? Where did you get information from? We just don't collect that information systematically. So the Weather Service is deploying this. When they go out to the field, there's a couple offices that are testing this if they encounter survivors doing damage assessments. We also built a tool for citizen science to collect that data at NSSL. It's similar to the USGS Did You Feel It app. So thank you very much, Span, for highlighting that.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. That will generate a great database there. All right, Troy, what you got for us this week?
Mine's going to be basically the weather in North Texas. We just got a new tornado warning out of Dallas-Fort Worth. just northeast of Denton, up near the little town of Aubrey, Texas. Area of rotation in there. They've issued a tornado warning downstream. But one of the big things in the last little bit has been the hail from near Denton back down to the northwest of Alliance Airport there in Fort Worth. And there were some indications of hail over 2 inches in diameter and some of that stuff. So that's what we're kind of watching now, just watching stuff over North Texas. My apologies to Dan and to Mike. I've been out of contact and been out of town for the last week or so. I said Friday night, Saturday morning when y'all storms. That was last Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. And so, but it was still the middle of the night. So I'll stand by the fact that it was not a good time of day. But apologize there. I was realizing I was a little out of it more than usual as I made that comment.
For a lot of us in the weather business, the hours are long. We don't know what day it is or
Yeah,
we know
exactly.
what year it is or why we're here. So I can totally relate to that. All right, Jen, what's your pick? What you got for us?
All right. It happens every 10 years, the release of the census. And the 1950 census was released on April 1st. And the reason I'm very interested in this, Tornado Talk has started to use Ancestry.com for our research. It's been really great to go back and we are able to find survivors and maybe they've written their stories, but we also use it for those who passed away, and we can look at death records and we can get the exact ages and hopefully the right spelling of names and maybe some other information. Like if somebody says that somebody died and then their brother was injured, then maybe we can find the brother. And there's sometimes there's write-ups in some of the records. And census records has been great as well to hone in on areas so we can map it better and we can get the history right to the best of our ability. And so the 1950 census just came out, and it's going to give us even more information, I think, to be able to go back and look. And then it was the first census that my dad is in, actually. And so I was able to find my dad and my aunt and my uncle and find them in Fort Worth, Texas is where they were. So I was able to look that up as I went to Census Day at the Columbus Library. And, I just love it. It's the history is just so amazing to be able to look back at those records. And I found out that in 2012, when they released the 1940 census, 160,000 people volunteered to index the data, and it took 4 months to actually index the names. They thought it was going to take 6 months, but people got it done because so many people volunteered. And genealogy and history like this is so popular, and people are loving it to go back and find their family records. So we're hoping that maybe we can even work with folks who want to know more about their family. If their farm was hit by a tornado or something, we could try to do some research for folks. So anyway, my pick of the week is the official link to the 1950 census. And they have an official website. You can find it and dig through the data on most like Family Search or Ancestry.
Jen checked to see if I was in that 1950 thing. Troy, maybe you too. I don't know.
No, we were there.
So we were clearly there. We were probably in the 1850 census. All right, Rick, what's your pick of the week? Go.
My pick of the week, Dan already did a very good demo of it earlier in the show, the Damage Assessment Toolkit. I know I've used this as a pick before, but it's a great tool. You can go ahead and look at Weather Service damage surveys. After we do a damage survey, we use that toolkit while we're out in the field, and those points show up. And once the Weather Service is comfortable with them and we certify them or quality control them, then they're released to the public. So you're not going to have every tornado in there. Some offices do a better job of putting every single tornado in there, but it's a good way to go back and look. And you can go back through history and look at, as Dan was showing, not only the path of the tornado, but you can click on the actual individual. When we're surveying, we stop on the side of the road and take a picture and put a EF2 marker in the app, and then you'll see all that in there. So it's an interesting way to kind of see the behind the scenes of a damage survey and get some information. So that's my pick of the week.
Excellent. Okay, Mike, we have stalled as long as we can. Got a pick of the week for us? Go.
I do have a pick of the week. I'm going to use NBC4's Doug. And I apologize if I say his name wrong, but NBC4's chief meteorologist, Doug Kramer, he was doing a tornado warning, I want to say Thursday night. I remember I was off, so it had to be a Thursday night because it wasn't Tuesday. And during the tornado warning, he actually realized that it was going towards his house. So he called his kids, his son and daughter at home, and to warn them. And from a communication standpoint, I've heard a couple examples of this, including one from Dan. I think you did it before, and also our morning meteorologist, Rick Catsby, and people said that when they did that in the past, it kind of made them realize, oh, they're not joking. So from a communication standpoint, it's like, whoa, they're warning their own family that this is coming, and I'm nearby. I need to take this seriously. So my pick of the week is the link to his to the story on NBC News website, because I think from a communication standpoint, it's maybe something to think about. If we practice what we preach, kind of thing, people see it, and when we tell our own family and friends, hey, you're under this warning, it kind of makes them realize, we're not just doing this for the quote unquote the ratings or whatever. We're serious about it.
Awesome. Good deal. We'll put the link up on weatherbrains.com. Dan, go. What you got?
All righty. My pick of the week, and I can share the screen, but I've already emailed Bill Murray this link. But this is the QLCS training that the National Weather Service out of Springfield has done. This is a fantastic site with many modules, project training videos on QLCS tornadoes. Jason Schauman, Doug Kramer, along with Jacob Beitlich, who's covering the first few seminars and first few modules. And this is my pick of the week. And then on top of that, there's also this cheat sheet for QLCX mesovortex warning system reference sheets. And it talks about the confidence builders. And you can see how, if you look at this line break is one of those confidence builders to issuing the tornado warning. And it goes through the different ingredients and all this stuff. So this is my pick of the week. And I think weather geeks and a lot of other scientists will absolutely love this. I know I have.
Yep, that is a great site. All right. Well, I think everybody's gotten their pick in here. So this has been a really good show. And we got to wrap it up here. Time is up. But listen, if you are new, we typically do the show every Monday night at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. And a lot of people listen and watch live. A lot of people gather around live.bigbrainsmedia.com. But we know most of you listen, and we thank you for that one way or the other. If you want to get in touch with us, the email address is email@weatherbrains.com. And we promise a long, lengthy email segment next week. We'd love to hear from you. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and God bless. Thanks, everybody. This was a good show.
That was awesome.
Great.
It was great.
Great show.
Thank
Really
you for
enjoyed
having
it.
us. That was really fun.
Yeah, thank you guys. Seriously. James, I want to know how you do it, man. How do you do as much as you do and stay awake and look as good as you do on TV? I don't know how you do it, man. You guys must have an amazing
James, don't be giving away the secret. Don't be